Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of the Nerdvana Inkspector. We're your hosts, Danny.
And I'm Marla.
And together we defeat the greatest crime of all.
Failed opportunities.
To tell powerful stories. We are going to talk about a very awesome thing that just came out. I mean, it's fairly recent, but it's a new trailer for a new series that D23 just posted about, which is Agatha All Along, which, if those of you don't know, it's a continuation of WandaVision. And honestly, we have a lot of thoughts regarding the trailer. There's a lot of secrets that you gotta really keep a keen eye to. New characters, I mean, especially Patty LuPone, we love that girl. And learning a bit more about the growth of Agatha and especially a new introduction of Wiccan. So, hey, co-host, what do you think? Any first thoughts regarding the trailer?
Well, I personally believe that throughout the course of my viewing experience of both the mega trailer, the television spots, the teaser trailer, and the standard trailer for Agatha All Along, I've noticed that throughout the course of this more experimental period of Phase 5, there have been a lot of worthwhile projects that have been showing a more metaphysical or more spiritually introspective aspect of vigilantism and more specifically of the comics as a whole. We know that Agatha Harkness is a character who originally served as Wanda Maximoff's mentor in the comics, and she was also Franklin Richards' babysitter, and Franklin Richards is of course the son of Sue Storm, who is the Invisible Woman, and of Reed Richards, who's Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four. And she's had a very prominent role over the course of these past 5 decades since her introduction. However, it hasn't necessarily been until Ultimate Spider-Man and until projects such as WandaVision, in which we've truly gotten to see her potential as a character. Catherine Hahn is an individual who has a very rich and versatile background in acting. She is an actress who's primarily rooted in comedy, but she delivers those comedic elements so brilliantly in WandaVision. However, it is an aspect of how her character interacts or ultimately externalizes her personal monologue and her personal thoughts. And it's very important to see that kind of representation of a more mystical and metaphysical aspect that we more generally see in projects such as the Justice League Dark animated DCAU film for DC, and there are more elements that have been more philosophically inclined or that explore a kind of spiritualism that we've only seen in series such as Constantine, for example, and that are more standardized to DC. However, through projects such as Werewolf by Night and the potential for a Midnight Suns film adaptation.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Exactly. Now that both Blade and Wolverine have appeared in the same film, and we know that Blade and Wolverine were both integral members of the Midnight Suns in both the video games and in the comics, it was fundamental for me to have the chance to do this deep dive and this meta discourse commentary.
Right. I really completely agree with you. I mean, already I'm really excited about the Midnight Suns and how the MCU plans on building upon that. However, I would like to mention that the trailer really, I guess, surpassed my expectations because, like you said, right, I mean, we've only seen this kind of spirituality or this dark fantasy horror elements. We've only seen it a couple of times in the entirety of Marvel Cinematic Universe in Blade or in movies such as Doctor Strange, maybe, but especially in Werewolf by Night. I really liked Werewolf by Night and how it included a lot of horror elements, but it still kept the hero, action-packed that we are used to seeing in Marvel films and series. But I really like the fact that it's focusing more on witchcraft or Wicca, and again, the introduction of new characters and how, again, this is trying to build on Agatha's story, because I'm very impressed by Catherine and her ability to be diverse in not only with her comedic roots, like you said, but also to show that kind of mischievous, dark element that a very specific person can only pull it off. Especially Agatha being such a prominent villain, not just a mentor, but yeah, she's a very dark character in Marvel. It's very interesting to see like how they want to place it. And so in the trailer, they show, of course, that she's still traumatized by the aftermath of what happened with Wanda, how Wanda affected, her life, and it honestly sounds very interesting of what we could expect from her growth.
It's especially mind-blowing because there are so many different details that I wasn't necessarily expecting in my personal viewing experience of the trailer, more specifically the trailer that was shown at D23 Expo. And at D23 Expo, something very interesting happened, which was that the composers of the many different WandaVision themes and their iterations throughout the course of WandaVision as a series, they participated in crafting both an orchestral piece that sounded almost like a summoning, like a prayer, but at the same time, it was very much a ritualization of what we know to be an integral part of the plot. And they performed it as a fictional ensemble known as Agatha and the Coven. And the song, at the beginning of the trailer, we hear a song that is called The Ballad of the Witch's Road. And I would like to hear your thoughts regarding what you were able to see, because we know that, just as you said, Agatha, she is recovering from a significant experience of memory loss, and that memory loss was caused by Wanda after having encased her in the trope or the stereotype of the nosy neighbor, Agnes, who was her alter ego and the person that she was going undercover as in the 50s reality in WandaVision. And so she was trapped in that reality mentally and physically to a certain extent, but we see that her life has progressed to the extent that she's a detective. And one of the interesting details is that, of course, Agatha being a detective is first and foremost a literary reference to the prolific author Agatha Christie.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes total sense. I mean, for me, I obviously thought that it was kind of weird that they made her a detective because, in a sense, you know, I kept on expecting like the witch and the witchcraft and her being creepy. But I guess I could see like how it could work out because she's still trying to look for herself. She's looking for meaning. She's looking for answers and her potential. And I think Wanda, in a sense, really like took a number on her. I'm very surprised of like how much it affected her. But yeah, just the mixture of detective searching plus dark horror fantasy, it's really interesting to see how that plays out because there's only so much you can get in physical evidence, but what happens when all the evidence, like, it all sums up of like being a paranormal activity. And I really like that element that they shown in the trailer. And I also like the fact that they tied it also with the Wizard of Oz because we get to see, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West, and we get to see
Glinda the Good Witch.
And
we also get to see a reference to Snow White. And I think that it's very interesting to point out that the beginning of the plot sees Agatha in a specific moment in her life in which she's searching for meaning, just as you said, searching for meaning, but she's also trying to decipher which were the events that led her to becoming, subconsciously, through the investigation of the death of, or the presumed death of Wanda Maximoff. We know that Wanda, at the end of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, was crushed by the rubble in one of the temples that she was, I'm not going to spoil it, but unfortunately she was crushed by the rubble of that temple. And so in the end, it's implicated to a certain extent that the person who died was Wanda Maximoff of that reality, or of the MCU reality. However, we know that she switched bodies with Wanda of Earth 833, who was the natural mother of William Kaplan and of Tommy. And through those specific experiences that we've seen, or those specific glimpses that we've seen into the elements of horror, I saw that there were a lot of references, for example, to Gone Baby Gone, to Seven, to The Evil Dead, to The Exorcist. And Poltergeist. We'll be continuing the segment after a short commercial break.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This dark world is in need of heroes, and comic books have always been our secret weapon, our beacon of hope. But watch out, because corporate giants and CEOs are scheming to turn our beloved heroes into mere money-making pawns. But the question still remains, who will rise up to the challenge? And who will dare to speak out?
That's where we come in!
Join us at the Nerdvana Inkspector with your hosts Danny and Marla, who are the wisecracking detectives on a mission to rescue the heart of our beloved stories. Are you ready to grab your capes and join us in this epic crusade? Let's unite, reignite the magic, and rescue our beloved characters from the clutches of corporate greed. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you soon, heroes.
And there's an exploration of the decades, just as there was in WandaVision. So you see, at the beginning of the trailer, you can see Agatha searching for someone, searching for who's presumably Wanda. And she says that the cause of death is blunt force trauma. And as she's investigating and as she's at the morgue, she starts to see strange happenings going on. And first and foremost, we see what could be assumed to be a certificate of death. It's not necessarily a death certificate, but a library card. And on the library card, we see the name W. Maximoff, presumably Wanda Maximoff. However, we know that the name of Wanda's son is William Maximoff. And so it could possibly be hinting at the fact that, of course, the one who ultimately ended up breaking her out of that mentality, or breaking her out of that cognitive dissonance, was Wiccan, and Wiccan was trying to reach to her. And the Wiccan that we see is, of course, more physically developed, because in the MCU timeline, by the time WandaVision takes place, there's a discrepancy between the timeline of Agatha All Along and of WandaVision, and as well as the Vision Quest series. And so the WandaVision series takes place, or throughout the duration of October of 2023.
Okay, so this is like way into the future, and there's a lot of course timeline changes, especially due to Endgame and
so it would most likely
Infinity
have to take
War.
place. It would most likely have to take place around November or October of 2025, as Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness happens in the fall of this year, of November 2024.
Oh man, honestly, MCU is kind of got me a bit confused with the timelines, but yeah, I mean, I can see how it could be him, the son. I mean, I really liked the handwriting when it appeared in the library card, but it showed new characters. You know, there's the Scarlet Witch. Technically, Agatha would be like the Amethyst Witch or the Garnet Witch.
There are different witches in the comics that represent different elements. However, the most prominent characterization of someone who has their own characteristic color, apart from the Scarlet Witch mantle that we've seen so far developed in the MCU, would be the new character of Rio Vidal. And Rio Vidal, she's portrayed by Aubrey Plaza, and Aubrey Plaza is portraying this new character who hasn't necessarily been canonized in comics yet, but she's completely original to the timeline of Agatha All Along and completely original to the MCU.
Oh man. And I like the fact that we discussed this after the trailer happened, where, you know, it's connected to the Wicca practices, and they're centralized on, you know, the stages of the moon, and that there's 8 stages, I think we talked about, and well, you mentioned, and that there's 8 challenges to what we can tell from the trailer.
And corresponding to 8 episodes.
So I guess it means like the more phases that they go through, the more their growth, but also connected again to that Wicca culture. And I really like the fact that it just, you know, it ties back to that, but also how those 8 challenges, you know, the 8th one seems to be the biggest one, and we also talked about that maybe Agatha would be the one who would end up, you know, surviving.
Exactly, because there's a lot of speculation, because first and foremost, the title alone, Agatha All Along, it denotes the fact that Agatha is acting on pure hubris. We know that in WandaVision, it's revealed that she betrayed her coven and that she was in the pursuit of pure power, but at the same time, and even betraying her own mother, and that caused her near execution. However, it's important to remember that in the chronology of Agatha All Along, the one who acts as a guide or as a mentor for her to remember her past life is Rio Vidal. And Rio Vidal, she is a green witch, or as she's described in the premise. And the premise of Agatha All Along is very different from what we've seen so far, because it relates to the fact that Agatha suddenly finds someone who is known as the mysterious goth teen, as he's advertised in promotional material, but we know that it's Wiccan, but they want to keep the mystery or the intrigue behind, especially for people who haven't necessarily had the chance to familiarize themselves with the source material, to know that their souls, after they were released from Mephisto, they incarnated in 2 twin boys.
Oh yeah, and we even saw in the trailer that Mephisto might appear. And this is the first time we actually are like seeing one of the biggest villains in Marvel has seen. I mean, he's caused so much trouble. But I think that in the end, I think that this will definitely show a lot of growth and perspective to Agatha. I mean, maybe she'll learn how to control her hubris, maybe she'll control, or just learn a bit more about herself, about her coven, about loyalty and trust. But at the same time, you know, we don't know what will happen, just so long as her character and her sense of self isn't broken, I guess. So definitely, this will be a watch to remember. You and I are both very much look forward to the series. But yeah, I think that's basically our analysis. I mean, obviously there's going to be more things coming up. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed this before, but we just posted a new episode in Spanish detailing more stuff about Deadpool and Wolverine. If you guys want to check that out, if you might be bilingual or learning Spanish, this is especially for Spanish speaking listeners, which is great that we were able to detail that kind of stuff. But for now, we just want to thank you so much for listening to our segment. More episodes in Spanish and English coming up. We even have our upcoming special, our 2-hour special called the Comic Book Strips, in which we strip down, get it, the layers of the movies or the comic books that we've seen that don't really get talked about much in mainstream, but that really should be divulged more. So we thank you so much for being a part of it. Like and share, subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.